Billion-dollar cocaine bust triggers Kingston Port investigation. A massive cocaine seizure valued at approximately 1 billion Jamaican dollars has triggered a high-level investigation at one of Jamaica's most important commercial gateways. Several employees of the Kingston Container Terminal have been taken into custody as investigators examine what police suspect may be a drug-smuggling syndicate operation through the facility. The investigation led to a major multi-agency operation at the Kingston Freeport Terminal. Movement was reportedly restricted, employees and vehicles were searched, and security personnel maintained tight control over roads leading into and out of the port. However, while the estimated value of the drugs has been announced, several critical questions remain unanswered. How much cocaine was recovered? Where did it originate? Where was it going? And did an organized trafficking network obtain assistance from people with access to the port? This is Jamaica News Now, special report. The billion-dollar discovery. According to the Jamaica Constabulary Force, cocaine valued at approximately 1 billion Jamaican dollars was seized at a port in Kingston. That is equivalent to roughly 6.3 million US dollars, although the final value could depend on the weight and purity of the cocaine, its intended destination, and whether authorities are using a wholesale or estimated street value. The police have not disclosed the exact quantity recovered. They have also declined to identify the suspected country of origin or the intended destination of the shipment. What has been confirmed is that investigators believe the cocaine may be connected to a drug trafficking syndicate operating through the Kingston Container Terminal. The discovery triggered an operation involving the JC's Firearms and Narcotics Investigation Division, the Jamaica Customs Agency, and the Police Specialized Operations Branch. The size of the operation suggests that investigators were looking beyond the seized drugs. Their attention appears to have turned to the people, vehicles, and systems involved in moving containers through the terminal. Ports placed under tight security. The investigation reportedly intensified on Thursday and continued into late Friday. For several hours, the Kingston Freeport Terminal Limited was placed under what was described as a virtual lockdown. Movement in and around the facility was restricted as investigators searched for evidence and questioned people who may have had information about the shipment. Security personnel reportedly controlled roads leading into and out of the terminal. The staff parking area remained closed into Friday evening, while some workers were allegedly prevented from moving freely or using their mobile phones. These restrictions may have been intended to preserve evidence and prevent possible suspects from communicating with one another while the operation was underway. The personal vehicles of several employees were also reportedly searched. Operations of this scale can be disruptive, particularly at a major commercial port. However, investigators apparently believed the restrictions were necessary while they attempted to identify anyone who may have played a role in moving or accessing the suspicious shipment. Employees taken into custody. The police confirmed that several terminal employees suspected of involvement in a drug smuggling syndicate were taken into custody. The Jamaica Gleaner, citing a source close to the investigation, reported that at least 8 employees were detained on Friday. Another worker was reportedly detained on Thursday after investigators began examining the movement of a container that had been placed under surveillance. The authorities had not officially confirmed the total detained at the time of the initial reports. Container movements under investigation. One of the most important reported developments concerned a container that investigators had allegedly placed under surveillance. Authorities were reportedly monitoring container movements before the cocaine was recovered. The investigation then widened after officers began examining how a particular container was moved within the facility. If confirmed, this could indicate that law enforcement received intelligence about the shipment before launching the full operation. Investigators are likely to examine who authorized the container's movement, whether it was relocated without a legitimate reason, and which employees had access to it. They may also investigate whether the container's seal was disturbed, whether cargo information was changed, and whether anyone attempted to remove the drugs before the container completed the normal inspection process. Modern container terminals generate extensive electronic records, access cards, vehicle permits, security cameras, duty rosters, and container management systems could help investigators reconstruct what happened. These records may show when the container arrived, where it was stored, how many times it was moved, and which employees or vehicles entered the surrounding area. Another vehicle intercepted. The investigation apparently expanded further on Friday, when police and customs personnel reportedly intercepted another container or trailer being moved from the port. Its contents were examined and the driver was reportedly detained. It remains unclear whether additional contraband was discovered or whether the vehicle was stopped because investigators suspected that it was connected to the original seizure. Investigation expands beyond Kingston. The operation was not limited to the port. Investigators reportedly conducted searches at premises in St. Thomas and possibly other parishes as they followed leads arising from the seizure. This expansion suggests that authorities may be examining a wider network involving transportation, storage, communications, and financial arrangements. However, the police have not identified the properties searched, their occupants, or what evidence may have been recovered. If a national or international syndicate is involved, investigators may attempt to trace the people responsible for arranging the shipment, the workers expected to facilitate its movement, and those responsible for collecting or transporting the cocaine after it left the terminal. Concern over possible insider assistance. Commercial ports process enormous volumes of illegitimate cargo. Trafficking organizations may attempt to exploit that complexity by recruiting people who understand port operations. A compromised employee could potentially provide criminals with container numbers, storage locations, security information, or instructions for moving cargo without attracting attention. One internationally documented smuggling method is sometimes called rip-on, rip-off. In that method, cocaine is secretly inserted in a legitimate container and later removed by associates before the cargo reaches its lawful recipient. Other methods can involve false documentation, damaged or replaced seals, misdeclared cargo, and unauthorized container movements. There is no official confirmation that any of these methods were used in this case. Establishing exactly how the cocaine entered the port system will be a central part of the investigation. Investigators must also determine whether the drugs were placed inside the shipment before it reached Jamaica, after arriving at the Kingston Port, or while passing through another location. The seizure of cocaine, valued at approximately 1 billion Jamaican dollars, represents a major law enforcement breakthrough. However, the investigation may ultimately prove more significant than the shipment itself. The central question is whether an organized trafficking network obtained assistance or unauthorized access inside one of Jamaica's most important ports. Several employees have been taken into custody, vehicles and premises have reportedly been searched, and investigators are examining container movements within the terminal. But detention is not proof of guilt, and many important facts remain unknown. The next major development will be whether charges are laid and whether investigators uncover evidence of a wider network operation across Jamaica or in partnership with traffickers overseas. Authorities must now establish how the cocaine entered the port system, who was responsible for moving it, and whether earlier shipments may have escaped detention. This remains a developing investigation. For continuing updates on this and other major stories, subscribe to Jamaica News Now, turn on notifications.
Subscribe today, turn on notifications, and never miss the stories that matter most. Jamaica News Now, your Highlands, your news, right now.